Hey guys, so in this video we're going to be explaining how to create boundary terrain to make sure players won't be able to leave your map. Now I'm going to be filming this video with TwinkleToes here, and you can check out his channel in the description below.
Let's get into this. First step, you're going to need your maker pen. In order to get that out, you must open your watch, go to backpack, click use on the maker pen, and it spawns into place.
Or if you want your maker pen, you can pull it from behind your back if you already have it favorited. Alright, so to get started with your hills and boundary terrain, with your maker pen, in your palette, you're going to be wanting to use the shape tube. Now for your tubing settings here, under create tube settings, we're going to be using tube radius of 8 meters, tube height scale of 1, 6 faucets. You can use 10 if you wish, but keep in mind 10 will use about 0.3% ink more per faucet. Now, our tube analog mode is going to be raw, and you'll be seeing how we use this later. Our smooth tubes are on and our connect nearby tubes are on. So to get started, we're going to be wanting to use swatches here. I'm going to be using several colors, and I'll be updating you throughout the way whenever I change my color. But to start off, we're going to be using the color gray with glossy plastic. And make sure you scale the size up to your glossy plastic. And most of these materials, to about 1800 or 1400, right around that zone. Now, to get our first hill started, what we're going to do is we're going to go straight up like this, and then we're going to we're going to add a little bit of a small like round nub at the top here for the hill. And now you can do that with the pressure of the smooth tubes and the brush stroke. Next, to add shrubbery to your hills, to start off, one of two techniques I use is we can clone this up and then we can recolor it with a grassy texture. Now the grassy texture I'm going to be using is we're going to be using the color Terre Verde with carpet as our material, and we're going to scale it up to 1400. Now once you have it recolored, you're going to want to scale it down on 0.01 grid snap, just a notch or two, and then move it back down so it barely phases on the top, just like so. Now we have our first segment of our hill built right here. Alright, so to continue building our cluster of hills for our boundary, what you're going to want to do is clone it. We're going to be mixing our textures here. So if we clone it this way, and now with it, we're going to be changing the color of our stone. Now we're going to keep the same color, but a different material. So our material that we're going to be swapping it to now is sand, scaled to 1300, and then our color is still going to be gray. Now along the line, we also are going to want to change our grass color. Now I like to keep the same material, but another material that I tend to use if I want darker patches is gravel scaled up very tall. Now what we're going to want to do is make sure you don't have creator flying enabled, and then you can pick up your tube just like so. And if you see any sections with more rock showing than grass, tend to keep that out of the player's view. And now try to like just cluster it in there just like so. And now we're going to keep doing this and changing the texture just a little bit. Now I like to use 3 to 4 textures. So for our next texture here, we're going to be using a different color too now. We're going to be using slate, and our material will be dirt. Now scale your dirt up really big. And now, whoops, I recolored my grass. So if we deselect the grass, that won't happen again. And if we just aim it at the bottom here, it's going to be darker. Now let's change the color of our dirt on top too. We're going to use Peridot, and then we're going to scroll down to gravel here, like I said earlier, and we're going to go to 2000 texture size. Now select both tubes, and we're going to put this inside of it just like so to create one cluster. Now this is our first cluster. We're going to merge shapes on it, and now we're going to keep creating our hill boundary. So this is our first section. Now what I like to do here is I like to scale it up to add some variety. Now that's a bit too big, so we're going to go for like a medium-sized hill here, and then right here it's starting to get a bit more mountainous in the background. So we're going to clone just the smaller section here, and we're going to just have it go just very nice and smooth of a slope. Now I want to put this one here showing a bit more of that rock, and with the rocks it'll really show the overall detail in it. So now if we get another one of these bigger sections here, and we just put it on this side right about there, it'll be able to create, that's our first like side of this dimension. Now if we merge these shapes here and then we clone it this way, we can start creating the overall spherical shape of our map, depending on the shape. Your shape may be a polygon or more of an abstract shape for your map, but as long as it meets it, it'll be fine. So let's just continue doing this, and then we can fill all of our outside edges. Alright guys, so whenever you finish, you should end up with something like this. Alright guys, so now that we're back here with our terrain boundary here, you're gonna notice whenever you try to put your floor terrain with it, that there are a few gaps. Now, what we're gonna use to fill these gaps are the rocks that you saw earlier. Now, to build our rocks, we're gonna be using 6 faucet tubes again to save ink, and about the same palette, except we're gonna change up a few of the colors. So we're gonna be using the color slate, and we're going to be using sand scaled up to about 1400 again. So put down one piece of tube like that, and then we're going to be using the material dirt, and we're going to put a separate nub over here, and now we're going to be using our final material, grip tape, scaled up to 4000. And now we're going to put our final nub here. And now to create our rock, we're going to want to make sure creator flying is disabled, and we're going to just move them around and slowly build it just like this. Now you're going to want to keep using the clone/flip tool and just putting them in here, and make sure that the textures kind of connect in a logical thinking, but don't make sure that it's not overly powered with one texture as well. And now the grip tape, I wouldn't use it all too much. The reason why I throw it into my rocks is in very small segments for maps whenever my sun chip is beaming on it and I want to show how glistening it is. And then let's select the entirety of this rock here, and now let's move it over to where we would want it. Now for this instance, there would be a gap right here if we had the floor connected to it, so we're just going to put the rock in it just like so. So now whenever we scale it up, it's actually connected to the floor. Alright guys, so the next thing you might notice with that other terrain we just had versus this was the shrubbery on the mountains. Now, since mountains are so far away, using trees would consume a lot of your ink. So instead, we tend to use bushes and scale them up, and it really gives the observation of it looking like a forest rather than a bunch of trees. It saves you ink, and on top of that, it's very efficient. So, for our shapes here, we're going to be using ribbon, and now for our palette, for our swatches, we're going to be using Terry Verde again, and we're going to be using cloth, once again, scale to 1400. So what I like to do with my bushes is I like to just draw one thing of ribbon straight up, another one here, and then another one all the way down in the same shape. And now what we're going to want to do is use the clone/flip tool, and we're going to want to clone it over here and then recolor it for the gravel material to be used, but keep the same color. So once we get the gravel material, scale it up to about 2,500, and now just put it in here like that. And now we're going to use one more texture on this, which is going to be dirt. So we're going to recolor it once again, but the material is going to be dirt. And now make sure this time with dirt, scale it all the way up to 5,000. And now recolor your piece of ribbon here, and now put it inside of it just like this. And now what you're going to want to do is select all 3 pieces of ribbon, clone/flip it upwards, and now slowly just build out that bush just like this. And now you should be left with a more of a spherical shape once you're done. Now I know from that angle it may not look the best, but you would have it kind of like this, and then you would keep just cloning it upwards. Now, you're going to want to set all of these items to decorational other than your boundary if you do not wish to use collisional gadgets. Now, once you're finished, you should have a bush similar to mine here. Now, we tend to put these on our hills just like the following. Now, I like to fill the little gaps here that you see where there are no bigger mountains, and then we're going to want to keep cloning it upwards, and then grab it again, and now put it on the bigger clusters of rocks. Now make sure you still have some of the rocks showing. Don't cover it all the way up, because then it won't look like a forest. It's going to be a tubing mess. Alright guys, so thank you for viewing my tutorial on boundary terrain. Now, this tutorial was edited and recorded by TwinkleToes here, and make sure, if you enjoyed this tutorial, down below to leave a comment, subscribe and like, and make sure to go visit his channel and subscribe as well. Anyways guys, thank you for watching this, and we're out.